Jumping back into the action now and looking at one of the more interesting cases around the NFL heading into this week, we highlighted this matchup yesterday between the Eagles and the Cleveland Browns, and specifically Jalen Hurts and Deshaun Watson, two quarterbacks that have received a lot of criticism this year. And I mentioned their bye weeks in the discussion yesterday, or at least the Eagles bye week, right? I'm usually not a fan of the early bye weeks this early in the season, week 5, and then to have like, what's the math on that? Like 11 to 12 more weeks after that to play back to back to back to back, right? Like, etc. I'm usually not a fan of that because it feels like it's too much heading into the playoffs to ramp it up even more after all those string of games. I would not be a fan of that if I was an Eagles fan, but I don't think any other team, ironically, needed an early bye more so than the Philadelphia Eagles needed it, right? Because after getting embarrassed again in Tampa Bay to the Buccaneers, the post-game comments that we had from Jalen Hurts, the injuries, all the criticisms at the Eagles defense for missing tackles, Jalen Hurts for not performing as he should to the level that everybody expected him to. Also, just everything, right? Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, not running it enough, everything. They were saying everything about the Eagles after that loss to the Buccaneers, and it felt overbearing that this team needed to get away, needed to be not talked about by everybody, it seems like, in the media, based on their performances. So now they have an opportunity coming off of their bye to kind of reset everything and make a statement, I believe, truly, because Jalen Hurts spoke about it this week in one of his press conferences, talking about improving, and he wasn't looking further than anybody but himself on what needs to improve and what needs to change. And I thought he had a couple interesting quotes here that I wanted to share with you guys, talking about, obviously improving not only just this team, but himself. The first thing he said was, I think it starts with me in terms of us playing clean football. I touch the ball every play. There's a ton of responsibility in that, and I love the position because of that, and an opportunity to set the pace, set the tempo for everything else on the field. And it's true. It's good to see that he's acknowledging that now, obviously, because it could be, obviously, when you're talking about a quarterback and you're talking about maybe turning the ball over, right? That's one of their main issues, and we're going to get to that. But also, admitting it is something else completely separate, and actually doing it's a very hard thing to do. And for Jalen Hurts to come out and say, he needs to play better, I think that's a great way to start, not only this statement, but just getting back to work on Sunday when they play the Cleveland Browns at home as well, coming off of that bye. It's going to be a great opportunity for them to really get things going for themselves. And it's funny that he mentioned the pace in this statement, right? He mentioned setting the pace, setting the tempo for everything else on the field, and that's something that I didn't know was so poor for the Eagles, right? For Jalen Hurts to obviously say it, I'm sure he didn't mean it directly, but anyway, it is something that they desperately need to get better, because the Eagles are last in first quarter yards per game in the entire NFL. They're dead last in that category. The amount of yards they average in just the first quarter, they're averaging 44 yards in the first quarter so far through 4 games in their season. And their third down conversion percentage in the first quarter is an abysmal 11%. So they're not getting anything from that first quarter, right? They're not doing anything good whatsoever. The last game, not really running it at all. Now their third down conversion throughout all 4 games is really bad to start. Their yards per quarter, I guess you could say, in the first quarter is really bad as well. So when they step on the field, they're not stepping on the field with the right foot at all, to say the least. So that needs to change. They need to change that pace, obviously, to get going faster and not be down a touchdown or just be down in general starting the second quarter, right? You want to avoid that as much as possible. And to that point, they're the only team in the NFL to not have scored a single point in the first quarter yet, which is nuts. Not even, I always think it's mind-blowing when teams haven't scored a touchdown in their first drive. But then when you really think about it, that's a little bit harder, right? To get together a whole drive and to actually score a touchdown in your first drive of a game, it's not as easy. Some teams make it look that easy, but it's not as easy as, scoring a single point in the first quarter. You've been held to zero in the first quarter each and every game is a problem. For how talented this team is, that can't happen at all. To not even score a field goal is insane. So that obviously needs to change, and that's a reason why against Tampa Bay, I couldn't understand for the life of me why Saquon was getting his third or fourth touch of the game in that second quarter. Insane that statement, right? Especially because you have no Devontae Smith, no AJ Brown. I know Kellen Moore's calling the plays, and I don't know if that's directly what they wanted to do, but like that's another thing that can't happen, right? You have Saquon. Even when you have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, in my opinion, he should touch the ball before, I would even say before any of the other guys touch the ball. I would give him the ball at least 3 to 4 times first, and then I would throw my first pass. That's how I think they should do it in a couple of these games. But then for not to have Devontae and AJ Brown, and you're still throwing it and not giving him the ball, like, what are we doing? What are we doing with that sort of idea heading into this game against Tampa Bay? And I couldn't understand it. It seems backwards that they're trying to set up the run game based off of the pass instead of how everybody usually does it, setting up the run game to set up the pass. Regardless of that, regardless of what the reasons are for that, that was what it was against Tampa Bay, adding to the reason why that looks so bad. And the turnovers and the giveaways are also another problem that this team has had so far through the year, because not only are you struggling in that first quarter, you're not scoring any points. Now, say you're behind and you're trying to catch up, you're ignoring the run even more, and you have Jalen Hurts trying to throw it even more, and we're throwing more turnovers, right? Because now you're down. Now the opposing team knows that you're going to try and catch up, and you become so predictable that you establish no rhythm with just passing it every other down and sprinkling in the run where it should be the other way. They should sprinkle in some of the passes instead of just being so pass heavy. It's something I still don't understand, going back to that Saquon point. And right now, in terms of turnovers, Philadelphia is tied for third in the amount of giveaways, and obviously it's frustrating, and it seems like it carries over to the post game conferences, right? When you hear Jalen Hurts make a comment like with Nick Sirianni and how they try to address the team's struggles over the break, and all he says is, "We have our moments," right? And that quote seems to have been addressed based on what Jalen Hurts said in his next statement when he mentioned Nick Sirianni. He said, "I'm happy and fortunate that we were able to come together in harmony and have the same goal in mind and try to get this thing right. I have a ton of confidence in him, a ton of confidence in what he brings, and everything he's been able to accomplish." And it sounds great. It sounds like it has been at least addressed, right? They haven't just been giving each other the cold shoulder or anything like that. They've been proactive in trying to change this for the better of the entire team, right? And that obviously needed to happen. You couldn't have this dynamic between a quarterback and a head coach going forward. It just cripples everything you're trying to do, right? If that relationship can't at least be respectful, then there's no point in even talking about anything else, because that has to be there at least. And it's great that they've addressed it now. It seems like they've at least gotten closer to being on the same page. It doesn't mean they have to like each other, but to have that conversation, I think, was good for this team. And now, talking about what I want to see out of them going forward, and in this game on Sunday against the Browns, where they have a great opportunity, like I said, playing at home, after their bye week, having extra preparation, but also having a Browns team that is really lacking confidence. They're 1-4. They're desperate to get something going, and it is a great chance now for the Eagles to go in there and handle their business and get back to over a 500 record. So what I think they should do, and what I would love to see in this game right away, would be less turnovers. Obviously, if they can have a turnover-free game for Jalen Hurts especially, that's a great way to just get out of your own way and not make it harder on yourself to to get things going quicker. And also, you have to use the running game early. I'm tired of seeing that be the storyline every single week where this team doesn't play well. Why aren't they running the ball? That always seems to be one of the main reasons. Eliminate that. Run the heck out of the ball on this defense that has good players on each level of it. But if you can establish that run, because the Eagles have a great offensive line, it'll make facing this defense a lot easier when they're tired, when we get into the third quarter and you're still running it. It opens up a lot of passing options, and off of that, it makes it easier for Jalen Hurts, because one of the problems people mention with him is that he holds the ball for too long. And why does he hold the ball for too long? Because they're not running it. Teams know that he's going to pass it, and now he's just sitting back there trying to read these coverages, trying to register everything out in front of him, and he's holding the ball for too long. He's getting strip sacked. He's trying to throw interceptions, or he is throwing interceptions. And that's what happens when you hold on to it too long. When you run the ball and you have teams overcompensating to stop it, it opens up a lot more coverages for your great wide receivers. It lightens up the box, or it makes the box heavier, and it lightens up the secondary for you to make easier throws for yourself, not trying to throw into these tight pockets because the defense knows that you're trying to pass the ball. It'll help out Jalen. It'll help out this team look a lot more better and more efficient as well. And I want to see also an efficient run game. First, it'll make it easier for Hurts, like I said. And on the defensive side of the ball, too, they're not going to get as tired, because I felt like for as much as people criticize the missed tackles, and that is a personnel thing, they were on the field a lot. And in that Tampa Bay weather and in the heat and just being on the field for that long, you were going to get more, or I should say less, discipline from those guys. The tackling is going to be sloppier, so helping your defense out as well is going to make this entire team look better. Those are just some things I want to see. They should win this game, but playing well, I think, is going to be much more important for this team, for their confidence. Getting A.J. Brown back, Devontae Smith, and those guys contributing should be a great game for them, hopefully, on Sunday to get this thing going again. Because like a lot of teams, they haven't looked necessarily great, but they're right there within the division, right? They're only a game behind the Commanders right now, technically. So if they can get this win, they're going to be right there with the Cowboys based on that. And we're going to leave that topic there. The Eagles trying to get a big win this upcoming weekend. And talking about getting big wins this upcoming weekend, we're going to mention the second part of yesterday's initial first part of the game picks for Week 6. We're going to finish it off here with the second half of them, talking about the Cowboys and the Lions game, talking about some other games that should raise a lot of interest based on the situations of these teams. So we're going to get back to that segment after this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.